Bibhu, can you tell us how this practice, as you said, emanates from the philosophy of yoga? Can
Mhm.
you explain that a little more? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, the Ashtanga, again, it's the word itself, sort of is self-explanatory here. It's the 8 limbs of yoga. Now, the 8 limbs are, broadly categorized into 2 parts. The first part consists of the 5, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and pratyahara. These are the first 5, and these are called the external limbs of yoga.
Okay.
And what we have is the last 3 is the internal limbs. So dharana, dhyana, and samadhi.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll just briefly kind of touch upon it. It's a vast subject, so we really
Hmm.
can't sort of delve much deeper than give at least a kind of a framework
Hmm.
from where we sort of are taking this practice. So yama is again moral sort of codes.
Okay.
So one of the moral codes is like ahimsa. Then you have satya, asteya.
Hmm.
You know, so ahimsa is is non-violence. Satya is truthfulness. Then you have brahmacharya, which is again here brahmacharya is not just sexual control, but there is a lot of other things. It is basically control of your sort of how you can exercise control over yourself. It's not just bodily fluids.
Okay.
And then aparigaha, which is austerity. Now, these are, the moral codes
Hmm.
of, what we call yamas. Then we have
Okay.
the niyamas, we have saucha,
Hmm.
then we have santosha, which is contentment. Then we have tapas, which is self-discipline, savidhya, self-study.
Hmm.
Then we have something called Ishvara Pranidhana,
Okay.
which is devotion to God. Again, we'll go into this definition of God, in a separate sort of
Sure.
talk.
Yeah.
We won't break it down. Then
Hmm.
we have obviously asana, which is postural yoga, pranayama, and pratyahara.
Hmm.
Pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses, or rather, not reacting to the olfactory,
Hmm.
which is the sensory organs. So you are receiving input from the sensory organs, but
Hmm.
not necessarily you're not under any compulsion to react to them.
Okay.
And then we have the 3 inner limbs, which is dharana, which is concentration, dhyana, which is meditation, and samadhi, which is absorption into the object of meditation.
Okay.
So where the meditator kind of becomes one. Now, why is this, why is all this required to do Surya Namaskara or to do
Hmm.
a Trikonasana? You
Right.
know,
Hmm.
this was my question also actually. Like when I started off, why do we need all this? Because
Hmm.
I came from a movement practice of playing various sports, and I came in and I found that I'm being forced to learn the names in Sanskrit, go
Hmm.
through this whole philosophy.
Hmm.
But when I went deeper into the practice itself,
Hmm.
I found that you need to practice these things to get better at the other, in all the aspects of, sort of yoga. And in the essence of the word yoga is to yoke, to union, is to bring about harmony in your system.
Hmm.
So if you want to bring harmony in a system, let's face it, we all need a set of rules, whether it's an organization or you're trying a spiritual endeavor or anything.
Hmm.
You need a system to be able to function.
Correct.
And this is what gives the foundation for the whole thing. Now, asana, I repeat, is a very small part, because
Hmm.
what happens, most people come into this practice just like I did, and there's nothing wrong in it. There's no judgment here.
Hmm.
It's just that you come into a practice and then you discover, oh my God, this is so vast.
Hmm.
This is so endless. This is so beautiful.
Right. So, as you're saying, if I can try to give what I got from what you just said, these 5 pillars of the external limbs, which is
Yes.
yama niyama, moral code, and actions. So, basically, if
Yeah.
your moral code is correct, your actions will be
Yeah.
correct. When your
Yes.
actions are correct, your asana or your body movement would be correct because you're not
Yes.
very tight. When your
Yeah.
body is more fluid and not tight, your pranic flow or your flow of energy would be better in your body, and you can
Yes.
master that even more. And then that leads
Yes.
to pratyahara, which is sensory withdrawal. So when
Yeah.
you've mastered, not mastered, but you've reached some degree of control over prana or the
Yeah.
force of life, then you're able
Yeah.
to find happiness in yourself. So you are not really engaging in sensory pleasures, which is pratyahara. Correct? In some way?
Absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely. No, it's spot on. That's absolutely what the whole
Brilliant.
idea of asana practice is.
Hmm.
And going into pratyahara, like you said, is the withdrawal of one point, small little point.
Hmm.
It's not a major point. So when
Hmm.
we say withdrawal of the senses, it's not that when we practice yoga, we are sitting in a mountaintop, away from civilization.
Right.
Okay. In most instances, we are doing it in our daily living.
Correct.
You are working, you do yoga in the morning, and then you go to work, and you have family. Everyone does a lot of things. It's integrated in a way of life also.
Hmm.
Now, pratyahara is basically I can have a lot of sensory input, but I don't necessarily need to develop a compulsion to respond to everything because response requires energy.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you look at yoga, I look at yoga as the most brilliant and most sort of top of the line ERP for the entire human body and soul.
ERP?
Enterprise resource planning. Sorry, I come from a bit of a corporate background, so
Uh-huh.
that kind of seeps in. It basically makes your whole being very efficient because you've got these codes, and if you function according to them, you function according to these principles, you'll find that everything is slowly over a period of time falls into order. You have tapas, self-discipline, which means you're waking up at a particular time, you're going to bed at a particular time. Your whole day is kind of it has a framework.
Right.
So your whole system kind of functions better. So
Correct.
it's about efficiency
Hmm.
of sort of. So you're already born with all these qualities. It's not that without yoga you cannot function or you cannot live. I'm not saying that, but it brings a lot more. It makes your whole being a lot more efficient in terms
Hmm.
of emotional expenditure, in terms of intelligence expenditure, in terms of energy expenditure. All
Hmm.
of these expenditures are moderated in such a way
Hmm.
that you have a very holistic existence because everything is functioning at its optimum.
Hmm.
You're not overusing or abusing anything.
Hmm.
So there is this, what we call, there is a word also in Sanskrit, samatvam, which is the equilibrium. We are in balance, we are in harmony.
Correct.
So that's the benefits of having a bigger system, a framework in place through
Hmm.
which you're doing something.
Brilliant. Bibhu, if I can probably ask you a technical question which just came to my mind. Um, what are the things that you kind of saw when you heard about yoga and when you were not in yoga that was completely different from when you came into yoga? Like, I can give you an example what I'm talking about. When
Hmm.
I did not know about yoga, I did not know the importance of, say, for example, exhaling when you go down in asana, inhaling when you come up, five
Hmm.
relaxed breaths, and the importance of that. So, what were the things that kind of made a big impact in your practice? If you can probably share some fundamentals that you kind of live by in your practice.
Yes. Um, we speak about breath, especially in Ashtanga system. There are three things we speak about. The three Tristana. We call it Tristana. Tristana is the first is Ujjayi breath. The victorious breath, where you're constricting the glottis and breathing through a smaller diameter.
Mhm.
Essentially, in a crude way,
Okay.
to describe Ujjayi breath.
Mhm.
And then you have bandhas, which is basically all the diaphragm locks. So we've got a diaphragm, obviously, in our chest to help us breathe. But our throat pit is also another smaller diaphragm, and so is our pelvic floor. That's also another diaphragm. So it's basically all these three diaphragms. How we contract them gives the lightness in the body.
Hmm. Do you think it gives you the control over the internal muscles? That all does it do that as well, or is there something else to
Yes,
it?
of course it does. Is of course it does. Like say for instance, the like when you engage the pelvic floor, your body does become lighter. So when you see yogis, do their seemingly contortionist postures,
Hmm.
and you see these guys are not like they're not really bulky. They're like thin, lanky guys, or women doing really fantastic things. but it is about engaging the pelvic floor. It is about engaging the diaphragm. But this is not, the benefits of this is not limited to just the asana practice, because it benefits you mentally as well.
Can you explain
Bandhas
it?
actually, yes. So when you are engaging certain, sort of these diaphragms, say for instance, we have something called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is also responsible. So we have an autonomic nervous system, which is divided again into two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, when the vagus nerve is activated, part of it runs through the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
So that is the rest and digest part of our body. So if anyone's suffering from ailments and you're practicing yoga, and over a period of time you find that you've got relief which modern medicine has not been able to give you, it's not a rocket science. You're basically accessing your body's internal healing powers. And we all know, we have empirical data. This is not like, smoke and mirrors mysticism that, the parasympathetic nervous system, that's very real. Okay, very tangible. It's got empirical data which says that, if the vagus nerve is activated, then the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated. So hence these bandhas, and then we have drishti, which is the vision point. So these are the three fundamental things which I feel really changed the way I practiced. And it didn't happen the first day. I did come to know it initially when I first did my teacher's training, but it is through practice now that I understand the refinement, I understand the benefits of it when you practice it. And of course, when you practice it as well as teach it, you see the impacts of that on other people's lives as well.
Could you explain a little about drishti and what it is for our English listeners, and how does it help in the practice of yoga? And apart from that,
Yes. On a very physical term, it helps you align the spine
drishti,
in a
just looking,
very
drishti
crude
is the vision,
drishti.
yeah.
Yes. Drishti is the vision. Okay. But again, this is like on a physical, aspect where we. So, say supposing you're doing a chaturanga, and usually I'm taking an example of an asana here. So you go from say Padahastasana, inhale, Uttanasana, and jump into chaturanga. I see a lot of people looking at their feet when they are jumping back. So they see where their feet is going to jump back, kind of, and they follow their feet when it's jumping back. Now, we have to remember that the eyes is connected to the cervical spine. Cervical spine supports the head, right? Now, the four parts of the spine, when you bend the cervical spine, the lumbar spine corresponds with the same bend. They are not independent of each other.
Can you
So if
simplify
one
that?
curves, so if I look down like this, whatever I'm doing with my cervical spine, my lumbar spine is mimicking that.
Okay.
So if you're going in, say for instance, you're going in chaturanga and you're looking at your feet and you're not looking at a point between your hands,
Chaturanga is
then
basically,
your cervical spine,
sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
Chaturanga is basically
yeah,
the posture which is, how do you describe it? It's your push-up pose, essentially. Yeah.
yes, it's a push-up pose. Yes. So when the cervical spine is bent, like you're flexing the cervical spine, then even the lumbar spine is getting flexed. Okay. If the lumbar spine in that chaturanga position gets flexed, which disengages the transverse abdominis,
Okay.
which is the main core stabilizer for the spine.
Okay, this all, if you'll have to simplify a little, because I
Okay.
do not know the words and how they are.
Mechanics,
Mechanics.
biomechanics. Okay.
Yes.
Like quite simply put, when
Yeah.
we change the direction of the cervical spine, that impacts the way our core muscles engage to stabilize the rest of the spine.
Okay.
Okay. Because to allow your head to move, the neuromuscular system has to disengage certain muscles. Now, the transverse, you've seen people wearing belt, like, when they have lower back pain, the body naturally has a corset like that. It's called the transverse abdominis. Okay. It's responsible for rotational, when you want to rotate your spine, that's the transverse abdominis helps stabilize it and then helps it rotate. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if you arch the lower back, that what happens is the transverse has to disengage for the lower back to arch. Otherwise, it can't arch.
Acha. Okay. Hmm.
Okay. Now, if I move the cervical spine, then while the transverse abdominis is engaged, which is stabilizing my spine and protecting my lower back, what happens? If I disengage that muscle, then that releases its hold on the spine. So the main stabilizer, it releases it, it stops stabilizing it.
Okay.
Then you
Huh.
have this arch of the lower back when people are going into Chaturanga. And over a period of time, if it's not corrected, you start having a lower back pain.
Hmm. Okay. So that can also be when basically you're talking about how people should engage that area. So the pelvic contraction
Yes.
is one of the main
Pelvic, no, also, and keep the vision point. So this is the reason why the vision points are there in postures.
Okay. Interesting. So when
Drishti
you
is, yeah.
please go on.
Yeah, so drishti is basic. This is just the physical aspect of drishti.
Hmm.
Like when I look at a particular point as my extended arm, I'm trying to raise it up, and then we say that look at your padagraha drishti. So you're looking at the big toe. What does that do?
Hmm.
That engages the muscles in a certain way for you to maintain that vision point, because it kind of fixes your cervical spine, thereby fixing your lumbar spine, thereby letting the core engage properly.
Wow. Hmm.
Okay, it's not like just random look at a point.
Correct. I used to think that it is only because your focus can be maintained. So that is only one aspect of it. You being able
That
to
is the
focus on one
see
point.
focus being maintained when you're saying
Hmm.
it has to be supported by musculature also.
Correct. That is so true. Yeah. Never thought of it like that.
You're talking about balancing an asana. If your core musculature is not supporting that, you can't keep your focus on one point balancing on one leg.
Correct. Amazing. That was a great deep dive and some really interesting insight that even I did not, I'd never thought of it like that. I always thought that drishti, which is one aspect, is
Uh,
only so that you can maintain your focus. But I did not realize how much using your drishti or looking at one point can engage your muscles. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah.
So there are three things. One is drishti, that is important, like you said. The
Drishti,
second is
yes.
bandhas, which is the
Bandhas,
locks.
yes.
Yeah. And the third
Yeah.
is your breath. These are the three pillars.
And third is your breath, yeah.
And they are called
Tristana.
Tristhana.
Tristana,
Tristhana
yeah.
Ashtanga.
Yeah. So
Beautiful. Thank you.
collectively, it's called Tristana, yeah.
Bibhu, tell me something. You've been doing this
Hmm.
for a while now. Have you seen how has the response of your students been? Can you share with us a case or a person who came and who really benefited, helped him in their life? Any example that you might have?
Yes, yes, I have actually many examples. I've got because I have a lot of students coming in for therapeutic yoga to me. So it's not just sort of advanced intermediate series or the advanced A, advanced B, and all that. So they come for therapeutic. So one lady, I will not take her name, but she came. She was a breast cancer survivor,
Okay.
and when she came to me, she had a lot of health issues in the sense, because she'd undergone chemo. So, and, she'd had the surgery. So she had, all the lymph nodes removed. And when she came to me, when I asked her to lift her right hand went up and her left hand was just here. She couldn't lift it anymore beyond that.
Really? Huh.
Okay. That woman now is holding a kakasana, which is an arm balance, for about 30-40 seconds or close to a minute.
Wow. And how is
So,
she? What are the benefits apart from just the asana practice? What all did she gain from the practice?
no, so she's one of the students, and as I encourage everyone, like whoever I teach postural yoga, I also include, I say that whether you go into it in depth or not, just like what we've discussed today briefly, I will give them the ashtanga, the 8 limbs of yoga, the basic overview.
Hmm.
And the students who are, keen, I will help them even delve deeper into that. So she knows the whole Ashtanga system of yoga. She understands yamas, she understands niyamas.
Hmm.
And that is how I feel. This is my view. Again, I'm not sure how, you'll have to ask her someday. Probably she'll be able to tell you better.
Hmm.
That because she embraced yoga as a system rather than just as a postural practice, like a movement practice, I think she got lot more out of it.
Hmm. Brilliant. And she's been practicing for how long now?
She's been practicing with me now for actually over 2 years, 2.5 years.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, we are running out of time. I mean, this is an interesting conversation.
Mm.
I'd like to deep dive, but we barely have any time. Can
Yeah.
you give some do's and don'ts to people who are here who might be interested in learning Ashtanga? What are the things they should be looking for? What are the things they should avoid? How should they go about it?
Okay. One is at least get an overview of the whole system. Don't think that is just asana. That's the first, sort of advice that I would give. Second is find a good teacher, because this is a practice just like any other movement practice. You can't do it on your own. This has been my personal experience also, that you need a teacher to guide you, no matter how gifted you are, whatever it is, but you need a teacher, because there are certain aspects of the practice which, even if you intellectually understand, philosophically and at various other levels, you can't absorb it and apply them. So get a good teacher and know the whole context of the practice, and only get into it if you like it. Don't get into it because someone suggested it.
Fantastic.
Verify it for yourself.
Any pointers that you suggest to realize how a teacher could be seen as a good teacher?
Well, a good teacher will help you push yourself beyond what you think you can do. And again, not in a physical, just limiting to a physical practice. It's more. So
Mhm.
a teacher who can help you open your mind, a teacher who can help you see your potential and work towards it and motivate you. I think that's a good teacher,
Hmm. Fair
in my
enough.
opinion.
Fair enough. Bibhu, thank you so much. I think
Uh,
this is pretty much all the questions I had. I mean, I have a list of questions, but maybe for some other time when probably we'll have more time and we can deep dive into practices and we can have an elaborate conversation. Um, Anything that you would like to tell people about yoga and anything that you'd like to share with the people who are here today?
Um, well, again, it's an experiential thing. So I would say, it takes some time out and just experience it. And then you'll know the intricacies of it better than rather than me just telling you, what it's all about.
Thank you, Bibhu. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your time and energy with us.
Thank you for
Um,
having me, Sahil.
It was a pleasure talking to you, and
Likewise.
uh, we will have you as the judge in just a bit. You can talk to people now, explore the metaverse, and hope you enjoyed this
Okay.
conversation.
Yes. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Look forward to our next one, Sahil.
Thank you, people. Have a good time. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're now going to look at the art and we will explore the space. We'll get to talk to each other. I hope you guys had, I hope you guys took something from this conversation. And if you have any questions about the practice, our Telegram group is available for you to ask those questions. You can also get in touch with Bibhu. I will share his details on the group. So if anybody who wants to get in touch with Bibhu can get in touch with him. Um, if you have any suggestions about what teachers you would like to listen to or what practices you would like to know about, please feel free to drop in the Telegram group. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your presence and your time. Um, Hope you guys enjoy the next session of Interviews. My name is Sahil. Thank you.